Hi everybody and welcome back. It's Benita here to do your March forecast. So I've got all my die here. There's so many with the second set. Of course, I'm using the Publishing Goblins Oracle die again. Let's see what we get for March. Okay, everything stayed on the mat this time. So this is going to be a pretty busy reading. And I see two that have ended up in the core. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. And the card that we have for the spread this month is They Who Hunger. So as we go through the book, we'll find out which card that is and what it pertains to. Okay, so the first die we are looking for is the Actions die. And it is showing up pretty close to the core under Future. And it shows a little dude with a knife, with a sword going through him. So that's encouraging. Let's see what that bodes for Future. Sacrifice. Okay, it says sacrifice in most cases to speak to giving up something that we don't want to. But typically it's for the better. So we're going to see how that plays out with the other die for March. And the sacrificial face, the important thing is that it's intentional. So it's not something where all of a sudden you're called upon to sacrifice. It's something where you go, I know I need to do this. Okay. So we're going to see how that plays out. It's really snugged up against another die sitting in the core. So we're going to see how they relate to each other. Okay, so that's what we get with the action die. Now, when it comes to the alchemist die, and it's cool because everything's showing up on here, it's showing up under history as lead. So that's what the lead symbol looks like. You're seeing it backwards on here, but you get the idea. And it says it's that which is on the surface. It's difficult, untouchable, or even dangerous, but know that with time, patience, and work, it can be made into something useful to you. So again, because it's showing up under history, it's saying historically you've been through something that is turning out, even though it was hard, is turning out to have been something worthwhile for you to go through. So it's just accepting it's in the past. You've done the work on it. So it's no longer necessarily anything that's dangerous for you. It's just something that still is coming forward from the past that's informing what you're having to focus on now. Okay. And just so everybody knows, after I finish with the forecast, I am going to open it up to mini readings. So save till after I've done that to put in any comments that you want me to pull a card. So at the end of this, I'll let you know when we're starting the mini readings portion of things. Okay, now we're looking for the Alleyman die. And the Alleyman die this time shows up under Beyond. And it's this little fellow. Hi, Diane. It's this little fellow dancing with a top hat. So he's showing up under Beyond. And it's about performance. So it's saying it's greater than being on a stage. It's how we perform ourselves, our names, our gender, our identities. It's that face we wear when we speak to coworkers. So because of where it's showing up, it speaks to what we are projecting out to the world beyond what we're experiencing directly ourselves. So again, we've just started the reading. We're going to see how these all play out. Okay, the Attentions die is next. And it is showing up where? So it's under Future as well. And I know this is going to look backward on your screen, but it says Neon. Okay, so it's showing up under Future. And it's an attention hog. It draws your eye, but it offers little in return other than being lovely to behold. And that's not the worst thing that something can be, but it also doesn't do what the other lights in our lives are made for. It does not illuminate. It's shallow. It washes over space and tints it. But it doesn't give you a light to read by. So it tells you about something that's glitzy and glamorous. to distract you from understanding it in the plain light of day. It doesn't want you to see how dirty the floors of the place are, just to feel a vibe, a theme, a mood. So we're seeing it showing up in the future. And it's interesting because we also know in the future there's a sacrifice to be made. So it's saying, don't get distracted from making your sacrifice by empty promises, by somebody trying to make things look better than they are. Just be like, yeah, I have to make the sacrifice. There's no sense putting a candy coating on this. The autumn die shows up in the past as well as an hourglass. Oh, it should probably be that way. There we go. Okay. Which is time. So time is in many ways the acceptance of things moving, of people growing, changing, leaving. That what matters to us most is what we do in the moment, even if that moment is forgotten and lost mere moments later. So in other words, remember how we got lead in the past saying something really hard happened? It's saying, pay attention to what you did with that that's helping you move forward now. Don't get stuck in the stories of the past. Instead, the best thing you can do is say, okay, that happened. What am I learning from that? What is it teaching me? And how am I carrying that lesson forward? Rather than getting stuck on, well, that happened. Instead, look at, so what's my gain from that? Okay? And we have the chaos die, which a lot of times doesn't show up, and it's showing up in the present. So let's see how that's playing out. All right. This die has a lot of faces. I seem to have missed the face it's showing me. There it is. Grimoire. So that's the face that's showing up. And it's showing up in the present. And it says it requires you to consult the books. When this comes up in a reading, choose a book of any kind, this guidebook, another tarot guidebook, or a book you're reading. Open to a random page and assign that page to this die in the reading. It adds to its meaning. Okay. So I have a book next to me here that I just recently bought called Factfulness. And this is actually an interesting book. It's about how if we look at the facts and not the headlines, we'll see that there's more hope for the world than we might have thought otherwise. So let's see what happens if I just flip it open and open a page. The media can't waste time on stories that won't pass our attention filters. We end up paying attention to information that fits our dramatic instincts and ignoring information that does not. Isn't that interesting how it relates to this spread? The idea that, we're looking at stuff from the past, we can get really caught up in it and in the drama and the story it represents, or we can filter away from that and say, so what am I doing with this now? So far, this reading is really talking to us about, in this month, what are the things that we're paying attention to and what is distracting us from what we need to look at. So pay attention to that. Where are you getting distracted and where do you need to go? Okay, there's a purpose for this happening. How am I working with that purpose? All right, so that's the chaos die. The elements die comes up, and that one is showing up under the present as well, and it's soul. So it's about the human identity, love, companionship, connection, and the very concept of the self. It's basically saying, in terms of what it's showing up with, it's the most human face of any die. When found in relationship to other die, it's asking you to remember the faults of humankind and be patient. So when we see it showing up with this grimoire that's saying, from what we got from the book, watch what you're filtering for. Good morning, Kathleen. It's lovely to see you here. We want to pay attention to what we're filtering for. Sometimes we're looking for the worst. Sometimes we don't want to look at our own pain, so we project on other people. We're looking at, well, they did this to me, and don't they know better? And not accepting the humanness, the frailty of human nature, not being patient. So much of what we're seeing in this spread for this month is mindset. How are we looking at things? Are we getting stuck on stuff from the past? Are we getting stuck in the drama? Or are we looking at how can I grow from the current experiences I'm having? How can I learn patience? How can I learn compassion? Okay, so that's the elements die. Now we're going to look at the fate die. And fate is showing up under the past, and it's a hand and there's cards. So it's called fold. It says in some cases, fold will come up to let you know what must be done. You must quit, give up, or pass your chance. It wasn't meant to be, and while that can be hard to hear, finally giving in relieves us of so many burdens. So when I look at that, showing up in the past, it's saying, again, the situation from the past that's been it's informed so much of how you see yourself, your world, how you relate to people. It's saying, let that go. Just let that go. You know, that's not a situation you could win at. So learn what you can from it and move on. And we know when we look at the last several months, there's been a lot of working through patterns, dealing with the stuff that's coming up. And now it's saying, now let that go and move forward with what you learned. Kathleen says, know when to fold them. Exactly, right? Know when to walk away. Okay, so now we're looking at the Goblin's die. I always love the Goblin because they're just so darn cute. So today the Goblin's die is also showing up in the past. And the little guy that's showing up has a little moon above him. That's the little Goblin's die. And it's about obsession. It says, obsession talks about an unabashed inability to escape a thought or concept, an impossible drive and need for something that you cannot stop desiring. And it says it's often characterized by nearby die. So interesting enough, it's next to the time die. So everything here is saying, whatever you've been hanging on to, whatever you've been obsessing about the past, it's time you let it go. You need energy to move forward. You need energy to make changes. If you're focused on the past, guess where your energy is going? It's not coming forward with you. You want to make changes. You want to leapfrog into a future you can really work with. I let go of the past, man. Okay, the influences die. And that one is also showing up in the past. All right, we got this little puppet here. We can see where this theme is going here, right? So the puppet is a warning. Someone or something is being controlled, and to what ends you have to determine within the reading. So it's basically pointing out when you hang on to the past, you are controlled by the past. I can almost guarantee you, if somebody did something to upset or hurt you in the past, they probably aren't giving it a second thought. They've moved on. Guess who's still prolonging the suffering by thinking about it? We are. If we're stuck in the past, we're doing it to ourselves. So we want to give the people who hurt us as little influence on our future as possible. Take what you can learn from the past, move forward, and let go of them and that situation. It's supposed to stay in the past. All it's supposed to do now is be a catalyst for your growth that you get to choose going forward. They don't have any say in your life unless you give it to them. They have no power over you unless you give it to them. Leave it in the past. I like what we're getting so far for this month. It's awesome. Okay, so let's see what happens with the kindness die. And the kindness die is showing up as a bouncing ball. And it's showing up under fated. It's the need for youth, simplicity, and play. So it points to the necessity of play in a situation, of being open and fun. And here's a neat way of looking at it. Since it falls under fated, is crap's going to happen in life. People are going to be mean. Stuff's going to hurt. Okay, be like that ball. Bounce. I had this experience. I learned from it. Now, on to the next experience. Don't hang on to it. Nobody gets out of this life without skinning their knees and getting hurt. It's part of the human experience. So bounce. Just go, okay, had that, grieved it, felt it, moving on. Okay? Because you need the resilience to be ready for the next situation. We all take life too seriously. This is just a smidgen of time in your eternal experience as an eternal being. You will have many lives. You will have many experiences. Don't get stuck in the drama of your past. Okay. The longings die comes up next. Oh, and that's what this card is about. Remember I said it's they who hunger? So let's see what this card says. It brings a seed of insatiable hunger. This driving hunger wants food, money, fame, love, faith, hate, drugs, ideas, fear, action. It's just the senseless need for more is the entirety of what is imparted in this card. You must slow down. You must ask yourself why. You are not this grasping impossibility. You're a person with history and love and belief. So parse your needs and your wants. What do they really say? In other words, when we want our past to be different, when we want people to treat us differently, what are we really asking for? What is inside of us that's getting triggered that if we turned and looked at that instead, we might get more work done on our personal growth than if we want something out here to be different that simply isn't. Good morning, Patty. Thanks for joining us. All right, let's look at the longings die. What is coming up? And what is coming up, also under fated, we have this hand. We're going to see what that's about. It's about touch. Touch is most often simply about the need for human connection. It can be the need to grasp something firmly, to hold something that brings joy, that feeds a need. So it's basically saying we all have a need for connection. Sometimes that connection doesn't work out. Keep honoring that about yourself. Don't withdraw. Don't curl up into a ball because things have been hard on you in your life. Remember, it's also along there with the bouncing ball. Bounce, go, had this experience, learned a lot, grew, going to keep reaching out for human connection. Not all of your connections are going to be wonderful, but remember how what we got from that book is watch what you filter? If all you focus on are the things that hurt, guess what? You're going to create more of those in your life because we create what we think about. So if instead you develop resilience and you go, that hurt, I learned from it, and I'm not going to let that stop me from reaching out again. I'm not going to let somebody else's behavior or a circumstance stop me from reaching out. I'm resilient. I can bounce. I can move forward. I can have more beautiful experiences, and I'm strong enough to accept the ones that don't go well along with the ones that do. That's that strength that you want to cultivate. It's a really tragic story, but I read about this many years ago. In the Arabic countries, this woman came home and she had a husband and 6 kids. One of them was an infant. And she came home, her whole family had been murdered by terrorists. And right in that moment, she decided, I'm going to have another family. They are not going to win. They are not going to take my ability to love from me. And she married again and she had a whole bunch of kids. It wasn't negating the family she had, but she decided the terrorists weren't going to win. They weren't going to cause her to lose her humanity and her ability to love and have a family. That's probably a story that's one of the best stories of resilience that's stuck in my craw. So think about being resilient. Think about your past not defeating you, or maybe something that's going on in your present not defeating you, because you get to decide what you do with your heart. You get to decide the kind of person you're going to be. Okay, the majors die. I always like this die. It's always interesting. This is the one in the core, snugged right up against the one that's about sacrifice. So I'm really curious to see how these two combine. And it is the path. So it shows up in the core. It constructs the paths before you, along with the difficult elements that arose that forced a decision to be needed. The path can visually and physically build a road, and it says, in the core, paths may likely lead to other quarters of the reading grid. How I read it here is It's saying you're on the path of sacrifice. Sometimes what you are sacrificing is your outmoded ways of thinking. If we're in victim mode, oh, that person hurt me, and I'll never let somebody hurt me like that again. You've just continued to make yourself a victim because you've let that person determine, their behavior determine how you proceed in the world. The sacrifice can very likely be, from everything I've seen in this reading so far, that old belief system that doesn't serve you. So if you sacrifice instead a belief that protects you, but really keeps you stuck in the past, and instead say, I'm not going to let that inform my choices going forward. I'm going to take chances. I'm going to love. I'm going to care. I'm going to reach out to people. And if I get hurt along the way, that's okay. It's not about trusting nobody will hurt you. It's trusting in your strength to move on from that, to keep loving, to keep caring, to keep reaching out, knowing there will be people along the way who will reach back and you will form bonds with, people you will never get to meet if you become too self-protective. Okay. And remember, we have that bounce also saying, approach life with playfulness. You know, we're all going to have this life, and we're going to die, and we're going to have other lives, and we're going to have other experiences. You're an eternal being. Ultimately, nothing can actually destroy us. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only change form. So we take the drama of these little lives way too seriously. And we all do. We all get stuck in it, and then you got to sit into it and go, how do I now shift out of that stuckness so I can be in flow again and allow for this life to show me and give me what it wants to when I'm not protecting myself. Because ultimately, there's nothing to protect ourselves from. We're walking around in a world of our own manifestation. We're only protecting ourselves from our own creation. Okay, so now we have the Mariner's die, which shows up in the future. And it is the compass. And it says the compass speaks to self-determination, setting your goals, and the feeling of being on the right track. In other words, what you do with the future is you go, yep, not going to walk around with that old mindset, not going to get stuck in, remember we got neon, not going to get stuck in illusionary thinking and, getting stuck in just complaining and focusing on what's not working. I'm going to place my intent. Hi, Judy, and happy birthday. I'm going to place my intent. I'm going to determine my course. It's not going to be determined by what other people have done and how they've treated me. I really like this. It's a very strong, just get her done kind of reading. Like, don't let the past destroy you. Learn from it and move on. Okay, the Metamorphosis die is showing up under Fated. And what we have, this one's a little hard to see, but it's a little caterpillar on a leaf. There you go. Kind of see it there. You're welcome, sweetie. I'm trusting that this has been a special celebration for you. So, I always say it's great to get a little bit older, a little bit wiser, and just enjoy yourself. All right, the caterpillar. There's a quiet patience in the caterpillar. This is the larval stage, the point when you gather materials for your work, for your transformation. This is not always a stage of knowing, but at your core, it's, you know where this is going. Even if you don't think it's true or you could never know how this will end, that's okay. So in other words, what it's saying here is, it's showing up in the future. You've said, I'm going to sacrifice my old mindset. The new one hasn't quite formed yet, but I have a determination to move forward out of this situation, even if I don't fully know what that looks like. That's what we're getting with that one. Okay. Obstacles die. The obstacle die is sitting under foundation. And what we have here is, you see a hand there. It looks like it's reaching for a little angel. That's what I'm thinking. Let's see what it's called. It's called emergence. It's the face of recognizing your power in the moment and rising up and beyond what has kept you from feeling free. So what I love about that, it's showing up under foundation. There's history on this map. There's history, foundation, momentum, and what's inevitable. So under foundation, it's saying, even though you went through some tough stuff when you were younger, you have risen out of that. You've grown as a result. Therefore, that momentum of growth going forward, reaching for more of your spiritual nature, is what's guiding you in this direction that takes you out of getting stuck in the past. It's a very powerful reading. This is a very encouraging reading for all of us who've been through life's challenges. So now we're up to the relations die. And the relations die is showing up under future, but really, really close to inevitable. And it is another, is what that one means. So it speaks of someone who means well and tries to do their best for you, but who oversteps their bounds and can be controlling or manipulative. So it's basically just saying, as we've seen with some of the other die in our future, humans are flawed. We're all doing the best we can with what we know so far, and sometimes our patterns get in the way and we hurt each other. It's saying, accept that flawness of whatever it is you're seeing in that person you're struggling with. You have flaws too. So be patient, be compassionate, and you'll get further than if you go, well, they should have known better. And why did they do this? And why did they do that? And you're stuck in victim mode again and in those angry emotions. And instead of going, well, I don't always get it right either. So I'm going to practice some patience and compassion here. And being able to do that helps you then to let go and continue to move forward and not get stuck in that old pattern of blame. The springs die. Oh, I always love the springs die. And it shows up where today? It's showing up under present. And what we have here is a little tree growing out of a seed. So it's called seed. It says seeds are as we expect of them. Many seeds are eaten or never make it into their soil, a fitting symbol of our ideas. This seed, the depiction of this face, when it comes up in a reading, speaks to something being started fresh from the start. A new move, job, hobby, project, or relationship. It's new and exciting. At its core, it's the driving force is this newness. So in other words, when we are looking at this, we got the, patience and compassion in the present. We got the, this chaos die that said, look at the book, which said, when we opened it, don't get stuck in your old thinking where you're filtering out what's actually going on. So this is saying, allow yourself to step into the newness of something. Well, that situation didn't work, or that person hurt me. Okay, what do I want to create going forward? What can I do that's new, that's fresh, that is inspired by my situation? If I didn't like what was going on, okay, what do I want to create? What do I want to put out in the world? It's all well and good to say, well, I don't like the way that person treated me, or I don't like the way this went down. So what do you want to create? What do you want to contribute? That's the key, is taking our situations and learning from them. Like that story I told you about that woman who lost her family and immediately decided, I will create another one. I will not be destroyed by this. I will go ahead and create again. What do you want to create? What are you inspired to create by the circumstances you have struggled with? I think that's a really key question for today's reading. What are you inspired to create because of the circumstances you have struggled with? Okay. All right, now we're on to the suits die. And the suits die is where? Okay. It shows up as an I in the past, which is called null. It's the empty space between the suits. So the things that says this reading means what it means and there's no hidden context. So in other words, it's simply saying, with all of it showing up in the past, don't give the past more weight than it requires. The best thing you can do with something that has happened to you is go, okay, this happened. I'm going to allow myself to have the feelings about it. And then I'm going to make a plan for what I want to do going forward because of that inspiring me to go forward in a different way or to tackle this in a different way. I'm not going to get stuck in the past. I'm not going to keep ruminating about it because it keeps me stuck in the past. And it means that's where my energy is going. It's not going forward. So keep that in mind. See, again, don't take life too seriously. The summer die. The summer die shows up in the core. So we see this. It's like a goblet that's spilling over. And it's called excess. So when it shows up in the core, it means the question is tied deeply to this concept of excess. And I think it makes perfect sense for us in this reading. And it's interesting that the two die that show up in the core are excess and this path that's connected to sacrifice. So in other words, the path away from excess is sacrificing. Excess in this case can be over ruminating about a situation you can't change, or something that happened in the past, or some hurt that occurred. It's saying sacrifice that. Don't get stuck in that. You need to move forward this month. So stop ruminating. And we have the winter die, which shows up in the future. And what shows up in the future is memento. So you see like a little, well, it looks almost like an old-fashioned brooch. It says it symbolizes the understanding of our time in this world and its finite nature. Memento is a contemplative space, often relating to us thinking back on times that we have since passed and what is ahead. It's a reminder that none of us escape our lives alive. So don't take things so seriously. Break some rules, be silly, dye your hair, make a move. Someday we will die, and that knowledge should free us rather than imprison us. It's a funny thing, because my own mentor one day when I was ruminating, he said to me, don't worry, Benita, because someday you're going to die. and that's the thing, right? It's like, God, the things we get stuck on, the things we let upset us, that when we're lying on our dying bed or a deathbed, we won't care about. If anything, we'll be like, oh, look at all the time I wasted thinking about that. Look at all the energy I put into that. And it really, in the end, doesn't matter. So much of this spread is saying, let go of the past. Stop taking it so seriously. What do you want to create now? Who do you want to be? If you're stuck on what other people have said or done to you, it keeps you in victim mode. You're not moving forward. Instead, you could be going, okay, I didn't like that. That hurt. What do I want to do in terms of who do I want to be going forward? What do I want to create? And am I going to let that situation take me down? Am I going to let it make me live a smaller life? I hope not. You know? So the last die is the wounds die, which always seems very fitting somehow. Where is it showing up? Okay. Funny, this is really interesting to me. I just clued into this. All through this dice spread, we keep getting hands. Hands with cards, hand reaching for a higher element. We have a hand over here and beyond. And now we have yet another hand. So I think it is this whole thing of keep reaching out for life. Don't let experiences make you recoil. So this hand is showing up under fated. And it's interesting. It says unmarred. This unmarred usually marks someone as being innocent to pain and violence. Someone who will be naive when it comes to matters of risk and chance because they've never tasted consequence. They are not fools. They merely have not been as unlucky as some of the rest of us. Our goal in life should not be to protect them from pain, though that will often be our first reaction. Instead, we should embrace them how they embrace life. And I think that is really, really key. It's underfated. It's saying in the end, with everything that's gone on, we should be like the innocent. If you've ever seen the movie What the Bleep Do We Know, which is a storyline peppered with interviews with physicists and mystics, they're all talking about how we create our reality. And one of the things we do when we create our reality is every morning when we wake up, We make up the world around us by what we expect to see. If we can approach the day with innocence, I don't know what to expect. Anything could happen. We keep space for something to be different. We allow space for someone in our life who has hurt us to come back and be different. I remember many years ago, somebody saying something to me that was pretty harsh and unfair. A year later, they reached out and said, I'd like to take you out for coffee. And they profusely apologized for their behavior. So I had let go of the situation, but I'd left space for people to be different, and that person came and was different. So, when we decide every day to approach it with innocence and to, as much as possible, process the past and then let it go, we allow for a life to come to us that we can't even imagine from where we are today. We can't imagine how beautiful, how full, how connected our lives could be. And if we want to get there sooner, we need to process our stuff, grieve it, move through it, learn from it, and let it go in a more efficient way so that we have freed ourselves up for that experience. And we can do that. We can free ourselves up for the universe to give us more and more high vibration experiences if we're not stuck in a low vibration of staying angry with the injustices we've experienced.